The Asylum. This is going to be one difficult film to explain, and it's almost difficult to try and sit here and talk to you about it than to try and make sense of this film just by watching it itself, but I'm going to try. So the first thing I'm going to talk about here is the Asylum. Don't be confused, this is nothing to do with Asylum Pictures, who make these kind of low-budget mockbusters. This is a completely independent film, nothing to do with them, just in case there's any confusion. Okay, so this is a 2014 film, and the reason why it's a bit of a bizarre film here is the final product that we get, I don't believe was the product that this sort of film started out to be. So this film has two stories running sort of concurrently. And I'll explain in a little bit more detail about what I mean by that. But they're kind of the main story here, and the main horror story at least, is basically there's this kind of old dilapidated asylum somewhere. We basically told it's out in the remote area somewhere, and there's been some kind of riot, and you know the kind of the inmates are sort of, you know, cutting loose basically and going crazy. So this SWAT team is sort of sent in, and with the SWAT team basically there's this kind of hostage negotiator, and they basically go to the asylum and they end up kind of getting locked in, and there seems to be some kind of odd sort of presence there. Basically, maybe it's kind of supernatural, and it turns out that they one of the sort of the party of these kind of, like, you know, hostage guys may have a personal connection to someone within that kind of this asylum. And basically these, you know, this sort of crew of SWAT guys and, you know, this hostage negotiator has to go through this kind of asylum, deal with all the kind of crazy people that are sort of trying to attack them, and pick off this kind of SWAT team one by one and find out the truth about what's going on. So far that sort of sounds, you know, fairly typical of a kind of sort of B-movie horror film, and say, what's so bizarre about that? Now, in itself, that isn't. The actual movie of this part basically stars Stephen Rea and Bruce Payne. So Stephen Rea, basically, you may know mostly from The Crying Game, and Bruce Payne's been in various kind of B-movie sort of films, and probably you may know him from the original Dungeons and Dragons film. So, you know, that's all well and good. So why is this film so bizarre? Well, this basically has a kind of another element to it, and this other element is as you were watching this film, there are sections where we actually see some people in a movie studio who are actually watching this film themselves and basically commenting over it. Now, if you've ever seen the movie Science Theatre 3000, I think we don't really have that in the UK, but I'm aware of it. Basically, it's kind of similar to that. So basically, we've got these two guys sitting in this editing room, and we basically sort of see some other sort of scenes as well with basically movie executives, and these are all played for sort of comedy. But the majority of it is these two guys watching this film as we're watching it, and we have this audio track of these sort of editors basically taking a piss and picking holes in this sort of plot of this actual horror film. So you can't actually watch it as a straight horror film, because although it does have a story in there, it's kind of broken up with these kind of like these sort of scenes, these sort of comedy elements, and as constantly you have this kind of this audio track with these sort of two guys, you know, taking the piss out of it basically, and kind of picking holes, pointing out all the sort of things that don't really work, things like that. So what it looks to me, and I tried to do some research, but I couldn't find any sort of definitive answer on this. But it looks like, or at least it's meant to look like, but I think this is probably genuinely what happened, is that they kind of tried to make this kind of B-movie horror film, and for whatever reason it wasn't finished. Because a lot of the footage that we see, it says like visual effects shot meant to be missing, or meant to be sort of inserted later, things like that. And for whatever reason it isn't there. So it looks to me like the company's bought this film, rather than finishing it and making it this kind of standard, you know, straight to video sort of horror film, they decided, well, let's just do something different. Let's not spend a lot of money on it. Let's just kind of put it out there, but make this kind of spend a couple of $1,000s, put these kind of strange actors in it, and basically take the piss of it and make it kind of like this meta, self-aware thing, basically. So you may be fooled into thinking this is a straight horror film, but it isn't. And unfortunately, you can't really watch it as a straight horror film, because this audio track, these guys choking, is kind of constant. Now, admittedly, the actual plot of this one is probably fairly cliche, and it was probably a bit of a rush job just to kind of knock out a kind of cheap horror film. Or at least that's, you know, this all could be a part of a plan. It could always have meant to be like this, but I really don't think it would have been, but who knows. But I have to say, despite all that, the actual horror elements of it, or the kind of the horror story, i.e. the one starring Stephen Rea and Bruce Payne, actually looks pretty interesting. And it's a shame it's almost got this other element to it, where you have these sort of two guys just annoyingly, and they actually talk over dialogue as well. So it's not in like the pauses of the, you know, the actual action. They actually talk over people who are in this kind of the main bit of the film. So you do miss parts of the plot and things like that. And it kind of makes what could have been a relatively enjoyable B-movie into something just bizarre, and this kind of like sort of meta experiment or whatever that, yeah, you may find funny if you kind of, you know, like your Science Theatre 3000, things like that. But if you're trying to watch it as a genuine kind of linear film, it's going to annoy the shit out of you. Let's just be honest. And if we look at the sort of the problems that obviously these guys are pointing out, yes, a lot of them are going to be bang on. Yes, the acting for the most part, the kind of the lesser characters in the kind of the Asylum things is pretty crummy. There's plenty of plot holes, things like that. Things don't make sense, and there's lots of cliches. Yes, 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 but we see plenty of films that we fully expect that's going to be the case, but we still enjoy them nonetheless. And this does have a germs of a good idea, and there's some good sort of creepy atmosphere. I mean, how many Haunted Asylum films have we seen? Loads. But that doesn't mean to say I don't still enjoy watching them. So it was a bizarre choice to make this film like it was. Like I said, I just think maybe that they ran out of money in production, and rather than kind of finish it like they're supposed to, they just kind of made this just to sort of get it out there and think, well, okay, we're not going to spend any more money on it. Let's just knock it out, and, you know, hopefully we'll just at least make our money back on this. But it's a bizarre film. I don't think it is funny in the kind of the. There's some comments that you might find funny. But if you want to watch this as an actual horror film, it's like I said, it's just going to annoy you. So just a bizarre film all round. I guess it may be worth watching if you're just curious, and just to sort of see this kind of almost like this weird experiment. But if you're hoping to get anything from this, I think you'll be disappointed. I'm going to give this movie a 2.5 out of 10 just for the curiosity of it all, because it's a bizarre thing to watch and behold. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I will look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.